What's an obvious sign someone's American? I worked as a cashier in a touristic place in Paris. I always recognized Americans because they were kinda friendly to me, and they always left tips. I guess there are worse things than friendly and generous. My host dad in Japan noticed I was getting overheated at the kotatsu while we were having lunch, and I didn't say anything, and he said to me, "Americans are so polite." I was shook after getting shit on constantly by all the other foreign students. Haha.
Hey, how are ya?
Great. Thanks for asking. It's really funny at a doctor's office. Doctor comes out.
How you doing?
Oh, can't complain. Walks back to the exam room.
So how are you feeling?
Proceeds to spend the next 30 minutes complaining. Unironically, one of my favorite parts of America. My doctor once asked me how I was feeling, and I reflexively said, "I'm fine, you?" He chuckled and said,
"No, you're not, or you wouldn't need an appointment."
Couldn't argue with that logic. I say this reflexively to everyone, but rest assured, I never want an answer. Hanging on by a thread, you? Always gets a laugh even though I'm being serious. Yeah, me too, brah. The gentle grins you give to strangers if you make eye contact with them as you pass by, at least in the Midwest, was not well received in Germany. I dated a European man here in the US. When we walked together, every time I made eye contact with someone on our path I would smile at them, and they would always smile back. Boyfriend was so confused at all these strangers smiling at me. Kept asking if I knew all these people. It was hilarious. Big city? Don't. Small town? Sure. Edit. Born German. EDIT 2. Thanks for upvoting my guide on greeting. I will put that on my CV. That's how it is in most US cities as well. I might give a head nod to another guy, but that's about it. Nobody returned my head nods. It took me 6 hours in country to notice. I was having an existential crisis for the remaining 6 days. I felt like I didn't exist. How much personal space they give themselves. Americans like at least an arm length. We're conditioned to fill spaces evenly. I noticed when I worked delivery, spending lots of quality time on elevators, that for every new person that enters, everybody shuffles to even things out. Similar thing plays out in social gatherings and bars. Not sure if that's universal or not, but I find it interesting. I think the size of our personal bubbles is because our spaces are generally much larger because we've got the space, to build bigger buildings, sidewalks, roads, etc. Might also explain why we're louder. Used to filling larger spaces with volume. By contrast, I've noticed people from East Asia on the other end of the spectrum have seemingly, to me, no concept of personal space and have no problem entering my sacred bubble of personal space. I'd imagine it's just due to living in denser conditions. If I can swing my arms and hit you, you are too close. They want ice in their water. Hi, American here, I have an addiction to chewing on ice. Incredibly loud but incredibly friendly. Thanks for the compliment. According to the CIA, when training to be a spy, you have to unlearn how to lean. Americans tend to lean on things when standing still. If you have time to lean, you have time to clean. CIA. Edit. Please stop responding that this is what they say wherever you work. That's the joke. Turns out my boss is CIA. Culinary Institute of America. Wow, that's an interesting point. I never thought about that. Yeah, so they say if you were in Russia in a queue for the subway, the American is the one leaning against a poster, a group of people talking in a hotel lobby in London, the Yank is leaning on a sofa. That's why if I was a spy in Russia I just squat everywhere. Gotta make sure those heels are touching the floor though. Heels on ground, comrade found. Heels in sky, Western spy. Shoot, I'm leaning against a counter while reading this. I had no idea this was an American thing. Thanks for sharing. Can confirm I am American, and if there's something to lean on, I'm leaning. And if there's nothing to lean on, I'll lean into one side of my body if that makes sense. I didn't realize how much I lean until I cracked a rib and kept running my arm into it when I'd lean on things. Which was constantly. I love this. Body language is both universal and cultural, even expressions and gestures. If you watch a muted recording of two individuals, one from the US and one not, you can still tell them apart. I wonder what people learn when trying to act American. Little stuff like leaning on things is so freaking fascinating, but it would also come naturally eventually as you acclimate. I guess those agencies set speed up the process by making you conscious of it. That last part is actually kinda funny, like, oh hey, better blend in, let me lean a little on that wall. It's like what happens in every sitcom when someone yells act natural. One interesting thing I've noticed is that British people often look British for some reason. British people of different races, white, black, East Indian, will somehow look British. It's weird. I wonder if it's the way they speak shaping their facial muscles. I say this because often when a Brit does an American accent, I'll notice how they have to shape their mouths differently. Or while the accent is good, something about their mouth gets my attention, only to look them up later and find out they are British. I think North Americans pronounce their R's almost uniquely. A phrase like rock and roll will out who is from Canada, USA. Extremely uniquely, in fact. Many American dialects use what's called a Bunchtermolar R. The only languages known to use this sound are English and Dutch, at least known by me after a cursory Google search, and in both of those only some dialects use this sound, although according to Wiki, the Dutch and English dialects actually use slightly different sounds. Note that many languages have a similar sounding consonant, a retroflex R sound, for example Mandarin, Dravidian, and other rhotic dialects of English. As an American, I was expecting to get roasted in these comments. But after reading them I can only laugh and agree. Laugh very loudly while leaning. I've realized how much I lean, but I thought that was a lazy bad posture thing. I had no clue it was a part of my culture lol. Retail worker here, not living in the US. I can generally spot an American because they greet me with hey how are you? And since I usually have the standard tired from life retail worker expression at first I thought they were mocking me, so I didn't know how to react. Took me a while to realize they weren't really expecting an answer now. Mind you, might just be my personal experience, but it's happened too many times for it to be a coincidence. Not a coincidence, in the US we're basically trained to have these meaningless pseudo-friendly interactions with retail workers. If we walk into a store, a worker will greet us and ask how we're doing. The only acceptable reply is, fine, how are you? And then we move on with shopping. It's true. Cashiers are expected to be almost comedically over-the-top friendly and helpful, and customers are supposed to respect that sacrifice by pretending to care for half a second. Then, when the transaction is complete, we flash blindingly excited grateful smiles at each other, express a variant of have a good day. Thanks, you, too. Before disengaging. It's rude if you don't do these things. Maybe I'm an outlier, but I've given the how you doing to service retail people before and gotten an honest negative answer. We commiserated for a moment and moved on. But I work service myself, so I might just have more sympathy for people in those jobs. I'm an American. As an American who worked in the service industry, I like to ask how's your day been? Or during the holidays, your sanity staying intact okay? Mine certainly doesn't this time of year. So it differs from the standard question so they know I see them and I care for their response. It ends with some really genuine answers and a moment of nice humanity that is just really nice in this day and age. I think service industry folks maybe recognize each other's metaphorical scars somehow. Lol. In my homestay in London, I was told that I was so American for enjoying a piece of cake for breakfast, not frosted cake, but like a nuts and dried fruit spiced coffee cake kind of thing. Apparently that's exclusively for like a 4 p.m. snack, and breakfast is more of a savory meal. That's true. A lot of American breakfast items in my mind are desserts, pancakes, muffins, waffles etc. Doesn't mean I won't eat them, but it's kinda weird to do so. German here. I rather enjoy wearing my baseball hat and eating and drinking on the go. Lol. From what I've been told by European friends and travelers, our complete and utter lack of an indoor voice was in Geyser in Iceland, loads of people sitting in silence patiently waiting for it to go off. The anticipatory silence of waiting for a natural phenomenon to occur was broken by a loud American shouting blow, damn it. As an American, the only place I've ever been where a crowd of Americans were truly silent was Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in D.C. It was eerie. It's the same at the Pearl Harbor Monument. The only tourist attraction I've been to with so many crowds and so little noise. Eerie is an apt description. I've lived in America for 25 years, and it still irritates me that instead of lowering their voices in restaurants so everyone can hear, Americans just scream over each other and make their restaurants as loud as clubs. Doesn't help so many restaurants will blast music or the TV at concert-level decibels. Your only recourse is to keep upping your voice so you can actually have a conversation at your table, thus creating a cascading effect of everyone shouting over everyone else. What? He said doesn't help. So many restaurants will blast music or the TV at concert level decibels. Your only recourse is to keep upping your voice so you can actually have a conversation at your table, thus creating a cascading effect of everyone shouting over everyone else. Snort. To quote a Latvian woman I met at a hostel, you hear them coming like the thunder. More often than not, if they're talking and laughing louder than everyone else, they're American. Edit. I love my American neighbors. Sorry if I sounded rude. Canadians are also pretty loud when we get going. And New Yorkers are a different breed. Their regular talking voice absolutely booms over everything else. Makes sense when you have to be heard over the 1000 decibels noise pollution. The bars in Nick are brutally loud. I feel like an old person saying this, but I just never liked going someplace with people, meeting them in person, only to not be able to communicate with them. I remember in one of my animal behavior classes, we learned that birds in New York are significantly louder than members of their same species outside the city. It's not our fault, we just live in loud hell. Tactical sunglasses. Sounds like my dad. He even has a dark platinum wedding ring that he describes as tactical. Waffles are tactical pancakes. They are considerate pancakes, they have pockets for syrup. Tactical, relating to or constituting actions carefully planned to gain a specific military end. It was the joining of two great houses to prevent a civil war. The accent usually gives it away. What are y'all supposing that means? Americans all talk like foghorn leghorn apparently. I say, look here son, that's just not true, boy. That boy's got more nerve than a bum tooth. That boy is as sharp as a bowling ball. Hey boy, what's the idea jacking that pot up under me? Jack? Pot? Jackpot, that's a joke son, don't you get it? British man once told me he knew I was American because I was wearing a baseball cap backwards. An Italian told me they could tell I was American because I wore my sunglasses on the top of my head when I wasn't using them. Bonus points if you put them on top the bill of your ball cap. And rock a goatee. I don't know how true it is, but when I was in a hostel in Japan we met a guy from France I think. But anyway at some point he mentioned he could tell we were from USA. He said it was because we talked loudly. Like our normal speaking volume was louder. And now I can't help but notice that sometimes when I speak to someone from a foreign country, I do feel like I talk louder than them. I saw two American guys play catch on a basketball court in my neighborhood. They were standing on opposite sides of it and speaking to each other, no exertion or shouting it out, just like it's a normal distance to talk at. And I heard both of them perfectly well from the other side of the street. Never heard such a thing before or after. Never get stuck in an enclosed space with Filipinos if Americans are your version of loud. Seriously. Grab your lumpia and get out of there.